Okay. I want to thank you all for coming. My name is Michael Gare, and I am the president and owner of my own small little financial planning company in Hackensack, New Jersey, which is in Bergen County. And before we get into the good stuff, I'm going to give you a quick and brief background about how I got into this market. And we can call it a niche market. I call it near-term college financial planning. You as parents who most likely have juniors or seniors in high school will call it crisis stage college financial planning. When I graduated high school, I went right to work. I went right to work on Wall Street, and I worked for some of the major financial planning companies. Dean Witter, Oppenheimer, some other smaller companies as well. And I always wanted to specialize. I always, thought that specialization was the key to building a good business. Never wanted to be just a general, financial planner. And so I decided that college financial planning was the way to go. And back then, this was in 1990, there were no fancy college savings plans. There were no 529 plans, no education IRAs. There weren't even any college tax laws, tax breaks for college. And even to this day, the financial services industry really does a poor job with college financial planning. It's kind of like the red-headed stepchild of financial planning. Nobody really looks at it the right way. And I learned this the hard way. And, the way I learned it is, I grew my practice was pretty good. Clientele was pretty good. And one event really changed the way that I looked at the entire college financial planning spectrum. It was 1995, and it was September. One of my clients had just sent his son to University of Scranton. And he called me up and he said, "Mike, you lost me money." And I said, no, I didn't. Your mutual funds went up in value. Believe it or not, some mutual funds do go up in value. I know this year's been a good year, but last year he probably said, "No, that's not true." And he said, "That's not what I'm talking about." His mutual funds did go up, but because they were titled in what's called a uniform gift to minors account. And back then, that was the only college savings vehicles. If somebody came to you, you were told, somebody came to you and said, "Hey, I want to put money away for college," you were told, or you were taught, that uniform gift to minors account. That was the way to go because there were supposedly tax breaks for it, which, is debatable right now. As I learn more and more about it, it's not such a great tax break. And what he told me, and what I learned, was that because they were in a uniform gift to minors account, and if you have UGMA/NJ, custodian mom, custodian dad, something like that on your accounts, those are what's called student assets, ma'am. Sorry. Those are what's called student assets. And if you've read anything about maximizing your financial aid for college, cardinal rule number 1, never ever have money in the student's name. And custodial accounts, UGMAs, they are considered student assets. Legally, they are the student assets. We can get into that another time. So I felt terrible. The guy lost thousands of dollars in what he could have gotten in financial aid if we would have done it the right way. And this is what I mean. Financial services still doesn't talk about financial aid. They're starting to do it a little bit, but it started to get me thinking. There's more than one avenue. There's more than one way to do college financial planning. When I talk about college financial planning nowadays, I talk about the full spectrum, I call it, of college financial planning. Yes, there's savings. And to this day, I'll always tell you that some savings is better than no savings. It's saving the smart way in the right vehicle, which is the most important thing. There's also financial aid scholarships, which is the majority of what we're going to talk about tonight. I call it 4 prongs: saving, financial aid, scholarships. Yes, there are tax breaks, and I know you don't want to hear about it because that's your CPA's job. But I think everybody should be a little bit educated on your own money, and there are tons of college tax breaks that are available to you, and if you apply them the right way, we're talking over $5,000 a year that you could save in taxes. We coined a term called IRS scholarships, tax scholarships. And I always like to say, does it really matter if the school gives you a $5,000 scholarship or you save $5,000 in taxes? It's still $5,000 in your pocket. And that's what we're talking about, keeping money in your pocket. And last but not least, you don't want to hear it. Reality is, though, is most of you, if not all of you, there's going to be debt involved with college, paying for college. And student loans are a big part of that. And that's the last of the 4 prongs. What's the best loan for you? Because there are so many of them out there that using the wrong one, can be, worse than, paying on a credit card. And I know somebody actually said to me one day, well, I want to use my credit card because I'll get the miles. Yeah, they did. They said that. So, I started to look at, the whole spectrum of college financial planning, not just saving for college. And if you go to your typical financial planner, that's all they're going to talk to you about is saving for college, because they were not instructed. Like I said, it's the redheaded stepchild of the financial planning industry. They're much more concerned about your retirement, your 401ks, are you rolling it over, your IRAs, things like that. That's what, because quite frankly, that's where your money is most of the time. So I started to do a lot of studying, and I said that, well, that's never going to happen again. Somebody comes to me, if I'm a college financial planner, I want to know everything there is to know about it. I want to be a true professional in the word. So I did as much studying as I possibly can. This was 1995 when the internet was just starting, and I had a 14.4 modem. And if you remember what that was, that means that it took about 3 days for a page to turn on the internet. And I read as much as I could. I called as many colleges, the Department of Education. And in 1998, I started my own company. Light bulb went on and said, hey, I can do this consulting for a living. And since that time, since 1998, over 10 years, I have helped over 1,200 families through this process. I like to think I've gotten them more money than they could have gotten alone, but you can never tell. I would imagine I could, through my expertise I did. I have filled out in excess of 6,000 financial aid forms. And I would probably tell you that I am in the top 5 in the United States on the amount of financial aid forms that I have completed. And, I tell everybody the same thing. What I talk about and what we're going to talk about tonight is based on my experience. I've been in the financial aid trenches. I've seen it happen. I'm never saying I've seen it all, but I've seen most of what's going to happen. So I know what I'm going to talk about. It's not based on somebody's theory. It's not based on speculation. I'm not your guidance counselor, your friend, or your work associate who always puts their 2 cents in and says, well, I know this, don't bother doing that. And when you think about your brother, your sister, their kids, if they put them through college, how many of them have they, how many financial aid forms have they filled out? How many times have they gone through it? Your guidance counselor, I can assure you, they don't fill out financial aid forms. Maybe their kids they have. Once, twice, 3 times. Okay? And we're talking about experience. And experience matters. And if you don't think so, think about who you would hire for just about your everyday things. Almost anything that you would hire somebody about, you would ask about their experience. And that's what we're talking about. So when I talk about some things tonight, some different strategies, some of you might say, well, is that true? Can I really do that? And, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're an accountant, a financial planner, if you're a guidance counselor. I've seen it and I've done it. So nobody can tell me, no, that's not true. You can't do that. So what we're going to talk about tonight is based on my experience. It's not reinventing the wheel. You don't have to do that. You're going to learn what not to do, what other parents have done and made the same mistakes that other parents make, you will avoid. Okay? This is not Financial Aid 101, where we're going to talk about, well, you have to fill out the FAFSA. We're going to talk about what to do to avoid, filling out the FAFSA late, making mistakes. Different strategies to get you more money, appealing and negotiating. This is, a little bit more advanced financial aid. And, I always tell people you don't need to sit there for an hour and 15 minutes and listen to somebody, say, okay, you have to fill out the FAFSA. You have to fill out the FAFSA. You don't need somebody like me to get financial aid. You need somebody to help you maximize your financial aid. And I always talk about, well, schools are approaching $60,000 now. And you fill out, we talk about getting financial aid, $60,000 school, you might get $20,000. Let's not sneeze at $20,000, that's good, right? You're celebrating, and then it hits you. You still have $40 to pay. So really, 20, it's nice, but you need the $30,000, $40,000 is what we're talking about, and that's what we're going to talk about, how to get that amount tonight. And when we talk about college, we're always talking about the costs of college. And when I talk about college, I divide them into 4 areas, and it's strictly on cost. It doesn't matter if they're a good football team or a good academic school. That's not my concern. What I talk about is strictly based on price, on cost. All right? And I divide them into 4 areas. And the first is an in-state public college. An in-state public college will cost you about $23,000. Montclair State had a bill of $27,000. Okay, William Patterson, about $22,000. So average is going to be about $23,000 at a Rutgers or something to that degree. An out-of-state public school, Penn State, a SUNY, University of Vermont, University of Rhode Island, they're going to run you anywhere from $33,000 to $40,000. And then you have a Tier 2 school, a Seton Hall in Ithaca, Monmouth. They're going to run you about $43,000, $45,000. And an elite private school, Harvard, Yale, NYU, Drew University, they're going to cost over $50,000. NYU, Sarah Lawrence, George Washington have price tags going into next year that are over $59,000. I'm not telling you to scare you. I'm telling you this as reality. Now, let's take a step back here. Suppose right now you had to write a check. Your son or daughter got into NYU. Let's call it $50,000. How many of you right now can write that check for $50,000? No. Not many people in the world can write a check for $50,000. I think in all the years I've been doing these seminars, not one person has raised their hand. And if they did, it's probably, not in the right seminar. Your names aren't Trump. Your names aren't Rockefeller. Like I said, very few people in the world can write a check for $50,000. On the other hand, suppose your son got into Rutgers. Can you right now write a check for $23,000? Now, every now and then somebody will raise their hand, and that's great. God bless you. Once again, most people cannot just write a check for $23,000. All right? And if you can, once again, congratulations. But it doesn't end there. What about next year? What about next year? What about the 3rd and 4th year? Less than 50% of students graduate in 4 years. Okay, so what about the 5th year? And what about brother and sister? Well, suppose most families have more than one student. So it's not just, you can write the check. You have to plan for the future. Okay? So what that tells me, if you can't write those checks,